The French can't believe it. They've been beaten at home at the Parc des Princes. The look of relief on the faces of the England team, unbelievable.
So a storming win for England, and further disgrace for the French when their coach Daniel Dubroca was accused of manhandling the referee David Bishop in the tunnel after the game. But England go marching on, and so too will ITV Sport Classics. Join us again soon.
Television in a different light. Television in a different way. Television that's different. Television with attitude.
Now we go over to the studios of ITN for the latest national and international news. A breakfast update in the ITN Morning News.
From the studios of ITN, the news with Richard Swallow.
Good morning, the headlines. Demonstrators in Derry firebomb a department store. Despite another threatened revolt, Tony Blair says welfare will be overhauled. And the Paymaster General insists he's done nothing wrong in his tax affairs. There have been more violent disturbances on the streets of Londonderry overnight after nationalist demonstrators attacked police with petrol bombs, bottles and bricks. Earlier this morning they set fire to a department store in the city centre. Earlier troops were ordered back on the streets after a day of sporadic violence. This report from Daniel Sanford.
Late last night, hijackers and petrol bombers returned to Derry streets. The trouble started as Christmas partygoers left the pubs at closing time. Soon, rioters had engaged police on four sides in running battles through the city centre. Derry hasn't seen riots like this since the Drumcree protests of the summer. Hundreds of Republicans fought the police into the early hours of this morning. At least 6 police officers were wounded. Time and again, the RUC advanced, forcing the rioters back, only to retreat to face another shower of petrol bombs. And a new weapon, a low-power laser. The trouble had begun earlier in the day when 3,000 members of the Protestant Apprentice Boys marched through the city centre, near to the Catholic Bogside. To vent their anger at the march, Republicans hijacked vans and buses and set them alight. A sign that despite last week's visit to Downing Street, violent protest is still part of the Republican armoury. The rioting continued until early evening, subsided for a few hours, before breaking out again as pubs closed. After 2 hours of late-night riots, police tried to clear watching revellers from the city centre. This only provoked more anger as the RUC and partygoers traded blows. The drinkers complaining that they weren't being allowed home. Firemen were left fighting fires around the rioting, cutting into a department store in an attempt to douse the source of thick, acrid smoke. Beside them, petrol bombs were still landing. Daniel Sanford, ITN, Londonderry.
The Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble has said he could foresee talks with Gerry Adams if the Sinn Féin leader genuinely turned into a Democrat. Mr Trimble told Irish television that in the past people have forsaken terrorism and changed into Democrats. He said it was perfectly possible for Gerry Adams to follow that path. In a television interview later today, Tony Blair will insist he won't be deflected from the government's big idea, the programme to overhaul the welfare system. But he's been hit with a new revolt over plans to cut state benefits for the sick and disabled. Education Secretary David Blunkett and Frank Dobson, the Health Secretary, are said to be furious about reports their departments will only win more money if there are cuts in benefits. Claire Cross reports.
The row over disability benefits raises the possibility of another backbench revolt just days after the rebellion over payments to single mothers. It was a memo from the Chief Political Advisor to Social Security Secretary Harriet Harman which sparked the controversy. He wrote, "It is likely that a high proportion of savings would have to come from benefits paid to sick and disabled people." The Prime Minister said there's a need to make savings.
We will always make sure that people who need to be are properly protected. The Labour Party always has and always will. What is important, however, is that we give opportunities for people who want to get off welfare, off benefit, into work.
Now Cabinet Ministers David Blunkett and Frank Dobson are said to be seething at reports their education and health departments will only get more money if savings can be made on the £24 billion a year spent on the disabled. But they are prepared to back Chancellor Gordon Brown's plans to encourage handicapped people back into work and stamp out fraudulent claims. One left-winger warned against forcing the disabled to work.
I'm horrified that there should be any idea of cutting disability and sick benefits. They're not sufficient as it is. Many people live in great poverty because of the inadequate levels of benefits. And whilst employment is the best way out of these things, cuts are only going to make the situation worse because the jobs are simply not available.
Gordon Brown stressed the government was simply promoting the right of the disabled to work. The government insists that when the full package is revealed, the backbenchers will support it. Last week's rebellion shows that many MPs will be reading the fine print with great care. Claire Cross, ITN.
The Paymaster General, millionaire MP Geoffrey Robinson, who's come under fire over his handling of his tax and financial affairs, is insisting he's done nothing wrong. In a series of interviews in today's papers, he says he's paid around £1.4 million in tax over the last 5 years. He dismisses the attacks as simply smears and mud. Mr. Robinson says he's determined to ride out calls for his resignation.
He's not done anything improper or illegal. He has acted within the law as it stands. And so, although he's in a difficult political position, there isn't the kind of final smoking gun that may force his resignation.
Details of a police report into the murder of Stephen Lawrence will be published tomorrow. Last year, his family brought an unsuccessful private prosecution against 5 youths over the murder after an inquest found the 18-year-old student was unlawfully killed in an unprovoked racist attack. It's believed the report will criticise the Metropolitan Police's initial response to the crime. Scottish Tories have unveiled far-reaching proposals for a reorganisation to become what they call the People's Party. The party is planning to stop candidates from south of the border standing in Scottish constituencies unless they have total commitment to Scotland. They're also considering recommendations that they elect their own leader and formulate their own policies independent of London. This from Cathy Jones.
Tories arriving at the meeting of the Scottish Council were beginning a reform process that could radically change the Scottish Conservative Party. They considered a consultation document for radical reform, a document that includes the possibility of even changing the Scottish Party's name.
It's for all those in Scotland who are fed up.
The blueprint for reform was being presented by Lord Strathclyde, the chairman of a special commission set up after the party lost every seat in Scotland at the general election.
I want to have a debate about the party name in Scotland. I suspect that the three great principles that we will look at are that we should be Scottish, Conservative and Unionist, and we will look for something that encapsulates all of that. It may even be that it doesn't change in the end at all.
Aside from the possible name change, Lord Strathclyde's reforms aim to completely overhaul the party, to prepare it to fight for seats in the new Scottish Parliament and for winning back seats at Westminster. Lord Strathclyde wants to produce a party that can claim to be more accountable than the Labour Party, a party he claims is run from London. Catherine Jones, ITN.
The sole survivor of the crash in which Princess Diana died has told French police that on an earlier drive in Paris, Dirty Fiat had instructed the chauffeur to speed up and shake off pursuing photographers. Of the accident itself, Trevor Rhys-Jones can still remember nothing about climbing into the front of the Mercedes on the last fatal journey. But he's told investigators he can recall more about events leading up to it. It's reported this morning that doctors investigating the spread of CJD, the human form of mad cow disease, are planning to introduce a nationwide screening program. It's claimed scientists want to examine the bodies of people killed in road accidents to get some idea how widespread the disease has become. Doctors treating Russian President Boris Yeltsin for a viral infection are hopeful he'll be well enough to take a walk today on the grounds of the sanatorium where he's been since Wednesday. He's also expected to vote for the new Moscow City Parliament. Its members have a major influence on business and political circles in the city, where much of Russia's wealth is concentrated. One person dominates the front pages of the Sunday papers, the Paymaster General, Geoffrey Robinson. The Observer leads with Robinson, "What have I done wrong?" The paper has a special two-page report on the activities of the Paymaster General. The Sunday Times also focuses on Mr. Robinson. Robinson's new Guernsey link is its headline. The paper reports on the minister's alleged dealings with Coventry City Football Club. In the Sunday Express, it's under fire, and what the paper calls the exclusive political interview of the year. In the interview, Mr. Robinson said he's determined to ride out calls for him to resign. The Independent on Sunday has Chancellor defends brilliant Geoffrey Robinson. The paper carries Gordon Brown's endorsement. He's brought business expertise to the government and was pushing through big reforms in the Treasury. The Sunday Telegraph also has an interview and leads with the news that the nationwide screening programme for hospital patients and accident victims is to be carried out to assess the spread of CJD. Finally, in the Sunday Mirror, a world exclusive with Frank Bruno and what it describes as his biggest fight to save my marriage. "Fight for my wife" is its headline. It's now 18 minutes to 6. You're watching the morning news from ITN. Coming up, despite Leeds being down to 9 men, Chelsea fail to cash in. Join us again after the break.
Chat and date. Call friends and swap telephone numbers 0891 57 57 57.
You can't see the toxic fumes from faulty heaters, but they could kill your family. Solid fuel or gas, get your system checked every year.
Don't have your ladder at too shallow an angle.
Look out for this guide to ladder safety.
Welcome back to ITN's Morning News. Now our news review, a look at some of the main stories carried on ITN over the last 7 days. The government won the vote in the Commons to reduce single parents' benefits despite a rebellion by Labour backbenchers. Des Fahy sent this report.
With Tory support, the government was always assured of a majority, but the vote drew a gasp of surprise.
The ayes to the right, 107. Left 457.
Those who defied the whip insisted they had the support of the country.
If we separate this place from the concerns outside, then the price we pay will not just be for the party of which I'm proud to be a member, but of the whole reputation of the parliamentary process, as people become more and more despairing if they feel their concerns are not listened to.
I think it's simple enough. The answer is that they shouldn't do that again and should concentrate on bringing in measures which instinctively get the support of the mass of the British people.
None of us feel triumphalist about this. We want the government to reflect upon the size of the vote tonight and the abstentions, and hopefully we won't come to this again. I think we've all learnt something from tonight.
The leadership insists they are continuing with their plan to bring lone parents into work, despite the rebellion.
We all know there is concern about this issue. No one would dispute that. The reality is, though, we are concerned about a much longer-term policy of getting welfare to work.
The whips are now firing off letters to the rebels, telling them this is their last chance, but many will ignore such threats, and the government will now have to prove it is listening to the concerns of the growing number of unhappy Labour MPs. Des Fahy, ITN, Westminster.
The Prime Minister held an historic meeting with the Sinn Féin leadership in number 10 Downing Street. This from our political editor, Michael Branson.
As Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams and his delegation arrived in Downing Street, they were met, as they had been told they would be, by the mother of one of the last soldiers killed in Ulster, Lance Bombardier Stephen Restrick. Mrs. Restrick gave them a card denoting peace and reconciliation. That set the tone for this historic day. Before the pause for pictures, Mr. Adams had spoken of the great grief and pain that Ulster's troubles had caused. Later, after 55 minutes round the cabinet table, facing the Prime Minister, Northern Ireland Secretary Mo Mowlam and other British officials, the Sinn Féin delegation spoke of a good meeting. Mr. Adams, can I ask why you think it was a very good meeting? How has this meeting moved things forward in your view, if it has moved things forward at all?
We had a good meeting because I think we engaged. I think we faced up to the difficulties. In many ways, the engagement could be described as a moment in history. We shouldn't underestimate the difficulties. At the same time, this was a good moment in history, because usually the moments in Anglo-Irish relationships in history are bad moments. Today was a significantly good moment.
The Prime Minister's people had already said that Tony Blair had no illusions about those he was talking to and their close links to the IRA. Nevertheless, Mr. Blair also said later that it had been a significant meeting.
Well, it was important that we met Sinn Féin as a party to the talks process, that we stated absolutely clearly and face-to-face the need for them to take the democratic path, the fact that if they took the democratic path, then they could discuss the possibilities for a lasting settlement in Northern Ireland, but if they couldn't, then they can't be part of that process. Now, yes, there's a certain symbolism in it, but behind that symbolism lies that reality.
Throughout, there had been rival loyalist and nationalist demonstrations just opposite the end of Downing Street. And as the Sinn Féin delegation left, with Gerry Adams giving a clenched fist sign of his contentment, those angered by the talks made for the gates to vent their feelings.
You terrorists!
And as for Gerry Adams' call after the talks for a face-to-face meeting with the Ulster Unionists,
the answer is quite simply no. We will not meet those who use the Armalite as the other element in a negotiating process.
And it is to that process in Belfast that all the parties to the negotiations must now return.
Richard Branson's hopes of a round-the-world flight in a balloon were shattered when the balloon was caught by a gust of wind and broke its mooring ropes outside Marrakesh in Morocco. ITN's Terry Lloyd sent this report.
The big day, and the giant balloon was slowly filling with air. The conditions then were near perfect, and Richard Branson and family, all clearly excited, ran across the airfield to inspect the Global Challenger. But shortly before midday, the wind changed and the ground crew were fighting to hold the balloon down. Then disaster as the mooring rope snapped. The balloon broke free and went its own way, spiralling upwards. The team, which had worked on the project for a year, could only watch. The unique balloon they'd created was disappearing. An ITN camera was with Branson back at his hotel as he took the telephone call which broke the news.
You're not joking. You're not joking.
Sorry? No, I'm not joking. The balloon has ripped from its moorings and it's gone off alone. Nobody's hurt you.
I'll come down there. Bye.
What's happened?
The balloon's... The wind got up and has taken the balloon away from its mooring.
Don't throw my phone down.
The would-be balloonist returned to the site to witness the awful evidence. The hard work and millions of pounds had been wasted.
The whole thing just leant over and ripped off. The question is what's going to go. The lines are the weakest, and because you don't want obviously to pull the winches out of the ground, so on. So something had to go. It was an overload situation. We took the gamble to inflate during the day and we lost.
Obviously it's bitter, but we're alive to fight another day, and you know, we will, we will start building another envelope. We may be able to get another envelope done for this season.
Branson left with a brave face as his dream floated away. So for now, Virgin must say goodbye to their hopes of flying around the world in that hot air balloon. Branson's own rescue plane was scrambled to chase the balloon. It was quickly spotted.
The balloon is now 50 miles away from Marrakesh.
and we're estimating that its altitude is approximately 55,000 feet.
It's still being tracked in the hope it can be retrieved and repaired. Terry Lloyd, ITN, Marrakesh.
Now with details of the main sports stories, here's Graham Miller.
Chelsea missed out on the chance to join Manchester United at the top of the Premiership in England when they could only manage a goalless draw against a 9-man Leeds at Stamford Bridge. Leeds had Alf-Inge Haaland and Gary Kelly sent off in a first half, which saw 8 other players booked as well. Chelsea's slip-up proved costly because Blackburn won at Arsenal. Tim Sherwood scored Rovers third after Arsenal had taken the lead. The Gunners have now lost 4 of their last 6 league games. The day got even worse for Arsenal's Ian Wright. He was later spoken to by police after shouting at fans outside Highbury. So Manchester United are a point clear at the top with a game in hand. They play Aston Villa on Monday. Blackburn goes second, 1 point clear of Chelsea. It's still looking very grim for Tottenham. They were beaten 4-0 at Coventry after that 6-1 thrashing by Chelsea last week. Christian Gross, Spurs' new coach, so the situation is now critical at White Hart Lane. In Scotland, Celtic broke Hearts in the top-of-the-table clash at Parkhead, but Hearts remain top. Craig Burley got the Celtic winner to end Hearts' 8-match unbeaten run. Hearts are now a point clear of Rangers, who drew 0-0 with Dunfermline, with Celtic hot on their heels. England's cricketers have beaten the West Indies by 4 wickets in the Champions Trophy in Sharjah. England reached the target of 198 with 4 overs to spare. Afterwards, captain Adam Hollioake said everyone had played their part.
It was just a good team performance, really. It was the ultimate in team performances without anyone actually starring. Everyone fielded well, everyone bowled well. Graham Thorpe got a 50 and the rest of the batsmen just chipped in, so it really was a team effort.
The Welsh Rugby Union captain, Gwyn Jones, is in hospital this morning with a serious neck injury which he suffered during Cardiff's defeat at home to Swansea. Jones, wearing the number 7 shirt, was hurt at the bottom of a ruck. He was stretchered off the field with a neck brace. Hospital staff say he'll be there for some time. In the English Premiership, there were big wins for Harlequins over Wasps, Northampton over London Irish, and Leicester over Sale. Leicester ran in 7 tries, 5 in the second half. The best, this 60-yard breakaway, rounded off by Michael Horak. Senor El Bertruti has won the Triple Print Gold Cup at Cheltenham. Jockey Graham Bradley kept the grey out in front for most of the race to finish 6 lengths ahead of challenger Duluc. The full starting price is then first Senor El Bertruti 9-1, second challenger Duluc 6-1, third Bell's Life at 25-1.
You're watching the morning news from ITN. It's 7 minutes to 6 on Sunday, the 14th of December. Here's a reminder of today's top stories. There have been more violent disturbances on the streets of Londonderry overnight after nationalist demonstrators attacked police with petrol bombs, bottles and bricks. Earlier this morning, they set fire to a department store in the city centre. Earlier, troops were ordered back on the streets after a day of sporadic violence. The Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble has said he could foresee talks with Gerry Adams if the Sinn Féin leader genuinely turned into a Democrat. Mr Trimble told Irish television that in the past people have forsaken terrorism and changed into Democrats. He said it was perfectly possible for Gerry Adams to follow that path. In a television interview later today, Tony Blair will insist he won't be deflected from his government's big idea, the programme to overhaul the welfare system. But a new revolt over plans to cut state benefits for the sick and disabled is continuing to gather pace. The Paymaster General, millionaire MP Geoffrey Robinson, who's come under fire over his handling of his tax and financial affairs, is insisting he's done nothing wrong. In a series of interviews in today's papers, he says he's paid around £1.4 million in tax over the last 5 years. He dismisses the attacks as simply smears and mud. Mr Robinson says he's determined to ride out calls for his resignation.
He's not done anything improper or illegal. He has acted within the law as it stands. And so, although he's in a difficult political position, there isn't the kind of final smoking gun that may force his resignation.
Finally, 2 winning tickets will each receive just over £4 million in this week's National Lottery. The winning numbers are 3, 4, 11, 14, 30 and 32. The bonus ball is number 46. And the numbers again, 3, 4, 11, 14, 30 and 32. And that's it from the ITN Morning News team. GMTV follows us. The next news from ITN is at 1 o'clock. Meanwhile, from us, goodbye.
Your name, please.
George Watling.
Occupation?
Your grandfather.
And your chosen specialised subject.
Road safety for the older pedestrian.
What proportion of pedestrians killed on the roads are over 60 years old?
About half.
Correct. What is the best way to avoid being involved in a road accident?
Choose the safest time possible for your trip. Think about your trip so that you can cut down on the number of times you have to cross the road.
Correct. Where should you cross the road?
At a pedestrian crossing.
Correct. What should you do about approaching vehicles?
Assess their speed to make sure there's time to cross. Watch out for any unexpected turns towards you.
Correct. And the drivers of these vehicles?
Check that the driver has seen you and that he's doing what you expect.
Correct. What? I've started, so I'll finish. What present are you and Grandma giving me for Christmas?
Pass.
Thank you, Mr. Watling. At the end of that round, you scored 10 points and passed on only one, which, if I may suggest, should be a computer.
Hi there. You know, each year there are thousands of accidents involving carelessness with toys. There you go, pal.
Toys that are safe for 5-year-olds might have small parts toddlers could choke on.
Good. Watch it, though. Toys carrying this symbol are not suitable for children under 3 years old.
And toys left lying around can cause nasty accidents, especially if they have wheels.
Watch out, buddy.
In particular near stairs.
Finally, get rid of broken or damaged toys.
Hi, Jack.
Bye, Jack.
Uh-oh, here come the kids.
So remember, play safe with toys.
Dad? He's gone to Birmingham. Now be careful. Be careful.
Driving in fog is dangerous.
She can see! I can't see anything!
So switch on your headlights. Slow down and keep a safe distance. Headlights or fog lights must always be used in fog.
Be careful, Joe. Joe! Joe, don't go so fast!
Putting our names on a register is part of all our lives. It can help make our lives easier. Registration allows us to make a choice. But there is one register that will do more. The NHS Organ Donor Register saves lives. The more people who register, the more lives that can be saved. Pick up this leaflet or call free on 0800 555 777. Toxic fumes from faulty heaters could kill your family. Solid fuel or gas. Get your system checked every year.
That ever makes me feel totally heavenly. Ever one that will make you feel shush, shush. Only one that ever makes me feel totally heavenly.
Television with a feel-good attitude.
Heavenly, yeah.
Good
Good morning and welcome to GMTV on Sunday the 14th of December. In a moment we'll have the Sunday Review, our look back at the events of the week. And at 7 o'clock, Alistair Stewart will be here with the Sunday programme. But first, this morning's news and sport. At least 6 police officers have been injured in street battles with hundreds of masked youths in Londonderry overnight. During the rioting, a department store was set ablaze and plastic bullets were fired. Dozens of petrol bombs were hurled during the clashes. The disturbances followed yesterday's violent clashes which broke out during a march by the Apprentice Boys. This is the first time troops have been called into action since the latest IRA ceasefire. From Londonderry, Barbara McCann reports.
Confined to one small area of the city centre, the rioting was no less intense in its ferocity. In a few hours of fury, the image of mass gangs of petrol bombers sent out a very different message to that of Gerry Adams at Downing Street just days ago. The worst outbreak of violence since the restoration of the IRA ceasefire saw the troops return to the streets as vehicles were hijacked and set alight and property vandalised. Riot police fired plastic baton rounds to disperse the mobs. In the front line, fire crews battled to put out the various fires, threatening to spread to nearby stores, and at one stage had to withdraw, fearing for their own safety.
After about half an hour, we decided then for our own safety that we would have to withdraw, so we get the fire damped down as much as possible.
The overnight violence in Derry followed on from earlier disturbances by nationalists objecting to the controversial Apprentice Boys parade.
The trouble here shows just how unpredictable the situation is and points to the underlying frustrations in the peace process.
With little festive cheer about this morning, businesses will be counting the cost of the damage to property and goodwill. Barbara McCann, GMTV News, Londonderry.
Ulster Unionist leader David Trimble has conceded that he may meet face-to-face with the Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams. It's the first time Mr Trimble has admitted he would be prepared to consider direct talks with him. During the ongoing multi-party talks, he's refused to sit down with the Republican leader. The Prime Minister has told GMTV he won't back down over the government's controversial plans to reform the welfare state. Tony Blair's insisting he'll plough ahead with the programme despite growing unrest from backbenchers. It's claimed the government is ready to target disability benefit to the anger of rebel MPs who voted last week against measures to cut lone parent benefit. Aileen Taylor reports.
The Prime Minister says he's been winning friends and influencing people at the European Summit in Luxembourg. But he'll need to work the charm offensive at home if he's to avert a new backbench rebellion over cuts and benefits. Mr Blair says while those in need will not be abandoned, he's committed to an overhaul of the welfare system.
If you want to get this country back on its feet, if you want to have a welfare system for the future, if you want to make sure you're not ending up spending billions upon billions of pounds on social security for people to do nothing, then you've got to reform the benefit system.
47 Labour MPs voted against cuts in benefits to single parents. The prospects of cuts and allowances to disabled people has provoked fury.
We won the election in May to get rid of 18 years of Tory government which created terrible poverty and terrible divisions within our society. We didn't expect 6 months later to have a big debate in Parliament about whether or not to cut a benefit.
A lot of people in Britain are having a rough time. The unemployed, the disabled, students, pensioners, lone parents, and I'm not prepared to see their benefits cut.
The Prime Minister says Labour will always protect benefits for those who need them, but any further cuts are likely to mean more MPs joining a revolt against the leadership. Aileen Taylor, GMTV News.
And you can see more of that interview with Tony Blair on the Sunday programme after 7 o'clock. Bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, the only survivor of the crash which killed Princess Diana, has spoken for the first time about the tragedy. He's revealed that the chauffeur, Henri Paul, was told to speed up to shake off chasing photographers. Speaking for the first time, he said Dodi Fayed was irritated by the attention of the press when the couple arrived in Paris after their Mediterranean holiday. The mother of Paula Yates has denied that Hughie Green was her father. It follows yesterday's disclosure that DNA tests showed she is the daughter of the former Opportunity Knocks presenter, but Paula's mother strenuously denies the claims. The Paymaster General, Geoffrey Robinson, has insisted he's done nothing wrong in the handling of his financial affairs. The multi-millionaire businessman has told a Sunday newspaper he's paid £1.4 million in tax over the past 5 years. Mr. Robinson says he's determined to ride out calls for him to quit. Only Fools and Horses star Buster Merryfield has been treated in hospital after taking a tumble at the British Comedy Awards. The 77-year-old suffered a cut to the head as he went up to collect an award at the Celebrity Bash last night. The show came out on top again, scooping awards for Best Actor, Best Comedy Moment and the People's Choice. Hervovi Todd reports.
Only Fools and Horses' triumph at the Comedy Awards has become an annual event. Last night it was marred by Buster Merryfield, alias Uncle Albert's fall. Despite a bad cut, the veteran actor ensured the programme's team had its third accolade firmly in its grasp. Someone else making a triumphant return was Cilla Black.
Last year I won the Lifetime Achievement Award, and I thought they were trying to tell me something then that, hang up your tapping shoes or whatever. And I came tonight just for the fun of it, and I was absolutely thrilled when I got it.
Oh, the thick as thieves now, Lily and Cilla. Go down to each other's houses to go shopping.
Jack Dee, who took the prize for Best Stand-Up Comedian, is convinced the secret to success is the deadpan look.
I could really spoil everything if I started smiling, couldn't I? I mean, that really would be a bad move.
Paul Whitehouse of The Fast Show carried off Best Comedy and Best Personality.
I never do my characters at home. I'd get told off, and to all my mates, they wouldn't allow that. If I started going into character down the pub, they said, shut up.
Other winners were Dawn French, Best Comedy Actress, and Caroline Aherne for Best BBC Personality. Not surprisingly, The Full Monty took Best Comedy Film. It's raked in $130 million at the box office so far. Hervovi Todd, GMTV News at the British Comedy Awards.
Arsenal striker Ian Wright has been questioned by police after the match with Blackburn. Wright is alleged to have screamed abuse at fans who had jeered the team off the pitch after their 3-1 defeat. Wright, who faces suspension after being booked for the 5th time this season, is said to have shouted from the Arsenal dressing room as supporters left the ground. Arsenal crashed to their 4th defeat in 6 games after conceding 3 goals in the last half an hour from Jason Wilcox, Kevin Gallagher and Tim Sherwood. Blackburn's victory moves them up to 2nd in the table, just 1 point behind leaders Manchester United, who play Aston Villa on Monday. Rovers go above Chelsea, who were held to a goalless draw at Stamford Bridge by a Leeds United side who had 2 men sent off. Tom Skippings reports.
After a week marked by the death of Leeds hardman Billy Bremner, his former team and Chelsea served up a first half reminiscent of their brutal encounters of the 70s. Leeds had Alf-Inge Haaland and Gary Kelly sent off, and 8 other players were booked. The only thing missing was goals. Liverpool's fading title challenge was revived by a 3-0 win at Selhurst Park against a Crystal Palace team who still haven't won at home. Paul Kitson marked his return after a 3-month layoff with West Ham's winner against Sheffield Wednesday. A late goal by John Hendry earned Barnsley a point in a 2-2 draw with Newcastle at Oakwell. And a very early one by Matt Letizia, after just 84 seconds, put Southampton on their way to a 2-1 win over Leicester. Tom Skippings, GMTV Sports.
Today's Premiership game is at the Reebok Stadium. Derby County will climb to 6th in the table if they win at Bolton. In the first division of the nationwide league, Nottingham Forest can close the gap on leaders Middlesbrough if they beat Wolves at Molineux. Celtic have kept up their challenge for the Scottish title with a 1-0 win over leaders Hearts at Parkhead. Despite Craig Burley's late winner, Hearts remain top of the table by 1 point. That's because Rangers were held to a goalless draw at Dunfermline. And a quick look at the weather now. There are some fog and icy patches to start the day from Lincolnshire up to Aberdeen, but otherwise it will be a dry but fairly cloudy start to the morning. It should brighten up later and most of us will see some sunshine. Afternoon temperatures will be much the same as yesterday. That's around 11 degrees Celsius in the north and west, but colder in the southeast with a chilly wind along the east coast. That's all for now. After the break, it's part 1 of the Sunday Review.
A shocking discovery and a spate of murders in the sleepy village of Badger's Drift. John Nettles heads the investigation among the suspicious neighbours.
Dennis? Oh, come on, Mummy, it's the talk of the whole village.
Which one of them?
which one of them?
Do you know, for a minute I thought I had the whole thing solved.
Midsummer Murders, tonight at 8 on ITV.
In GMTV Stalking next week, Coronation Street's mechanic, Sally's smitten. Girl power, pop chicks at the premiere. Streisand, the legend. Tara, the actress. Joseph in our house and on the prowl. And our Christmas cracker competition. GMTV, all next week.
Good morning from Wendy, from me. Welcome to the Sunday Review. Our Matter of Faith guest this week is Derek Bodell of the National AIDS Trust, who is one of Diana's personal charities. First though, this week's headlines. The government received a shock after 47 of its own MPs vote against benefit cuts for single parents. Richard Branson's attempt at the round-the-world ballooning ends in disaster again. And the latest Bond film bursts onto our screens just in time for Christmas. It's been a busy week for the Prime Minister. He flew to Luxembourg on Friday to do battle during negotiations for a single European currency. While there, he also discussed the Northern Ireland peace process with the Irish Prime Minister, Bertie Ahern. It follows Thursday's talks with Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams, who stepped over the threshold of number 10 to the anger of Ulster Unionists. Our political editor Gavin Partington sent this report on Friday morning.
Fresh from his historic meeting with Gerry Adams, Tony Blair arrived in Luxembourg last night. He's expected to meet Bertie Ahern later today. The images from Downing Street yesterday have crossed the world. But predictably also, the optimism of Tony Blair and Sinn Féin leaders hits a wall of Unionist anger. Reacting last night to suggestions they now meet with Gerry Adams, Ulster Unionist MPs were adamant.
They won't get that. We're not in that sort of business where we deal with those who have no remorse, who are not prepared to dismantle their terrorist organisations or disarm their illegal weapons.
That anger was reflected in the Commons last night as MPs renewed emergency laws to deal with terrorism in Ulster, but voted to scrap internment powers. Nevertheless, Sinn Féin remain optimistic.
It is my dearest wish now as we fast approach Christmas that everyone will recognise the need to increase the dialogue leading to meaningful and sincere negotiations in the new year.
The peace process now hinges on multi-party talks in Belfast. Gerry Adams called his meeting with Tony Blair a good moment in history. The coming months will determine whether it was more than a moment. Gavin Partington, GMTV News, Westminster.
On Wednesday, Tony Blair was rocked by a larger-than-expected revolt by fellow Labour MPs against cuts to lone parent benefits. The government won the crucial Commons vote, but 47 Labour MPs rebelled by voting against the government, with others abstaining. Many of the rebels will now be punished by party whips. The government published radical plans to reform the NHS and give it a new lease of life. They included abolishing the internal market and slashing red tape. Ministers want to plough the money saved into patient care. Mr Blair says he'll put doctors and nurses in the driving seat. Here's our political correspondent, Sue Jameson.
It's a revolution in healthcare, according to those who've helped draft the white paper, giving the country's 35,000 GPs responsibility for their patients, including buying hospital treatment and community care. It's designed to end what critics say has been a two-tier system, with some patients having more access to care than others. And by cutting bureaucracy, the government hopes to save £1 billion in the lifetime of the Parliament. The profession is prepared to give most changes a cautious welcome.
And if we are to make the best use of the available money, we have to streamline the service, we have to get the priorities right.
We will support them in efforts to cut down on bureaucracy, but they're not going to solve the problems of the NHS by that means alone. They have to put in more funds. I think deep down they know they do.
The changes will also include a new 24-hour hotline, NHS Direct, to help cut down on unnecessary visits, and more responsibility for some nurses.
New guidelines were also introduced aimed at curbing violence against nurses. They were presented to the Health Secretary on Wednesday. The Health and Safety Executive claimed over a third of nurses have been attacked on duty, despite tighter security, making it the most dangerous profession in the UK. Mara Hindley launched a legal challenge against the ruling that she should spend the rest of her life in jail. The Moors murderer claims the ruling that life should mean life made by Jack Straw is unlawful, and she's hoping that the High Court will order a judicial review of his actions. The family of one of Hindley's victims, John Kilbride, told GMTV she should never be released. Police are offering a reward to try and track down the callous burglars who beat up a war veteran at his home in Newcastle. 90-year-old Thomas Hall died in hospital 12 days after being beaten, bound and gagged. His attackers then cut off his phone and electricity. Mr. Hall suffered a stroke and had developed hypothermia by the time that he was found. Part of Heathrow Airport was closed on Friday because of a major fire. The blaze broke out just after 4:30 in the morning in Terminal 1. Staff were quickly evacuated and roads into the airport were sealed off, causing traffic chaos. The parents of abducted baby Carly Hawthorne have described their 14-hour ordeal before she was returned to them. Carly was snatched from hospital last weekend, just 3 hours after she was born. Her mother Tanya says she's afraid to sleep now in case she finds Carly's cot empty again. 33-year-old mother of 3, Denise Giddings, appeared before Basildon magistrates this week, accused of abducting Carly. A massive police hunt's underway in Northern Ireland after a convicted IRA killer escaped from the Maze prison. He went missing from one of the notorious H-blocks after attending an annual Christmas party for the children of inmates at the jail. From Belfast, Barbara McCann reports.
The escape from the high-security Maze prison wasn't discovered for several hours. Double killer Liam Averill is believed to have dressed in women's clothes to slip past wardens during a Christmas party for inmates' children. By the time the breach was noticed and a massive security dragnet in place, it's thought he had long been ferried across the Republic's border about 30 miles away.
But if the Home Secretary cannot have this man brought back in as urgently as possible, then he should consider his position and he should go. We have no confidence in a Home Secretary that allows this sort of thing to happen.
Ulster Prisons Chief Alan Shannon was attending a peace concert in Belfast last night when the news broke and rushed off stony-faced without commenting to reporters. This is clearly a severe embarrassment to the prison authorities here. Much had been made of the increased security measures which were introduced following an attempt at a mass breakout by IRA prisoners earlier this year. Another internal review is already underway. Barbara McCann, GMTV News at the Maze Prison.
World News now. Richard Branson hoped this week to make another attempt on the round-the-world ballooning record. However, his Global Challenger balloon broke free of its moorings in Marrakesh and drifted into Algeria. It suffered serious damage and now needs to be repaired. An historic deal committing countries to legally binding cuts in greenhouse gases has been agreed at the World Summit on Climate Change in